The coffee cup trembled slightly as the old man set it down on the hood of the command vehicle. Lieutenant Marcus Webb noticed immediately the subtle shake that came with age, magnified by stress and adrenaline. "Are you kidding me?" Webb hissed to his team sergeant. "Look at those hands. He can't even hold a cup steady. How the hell is he supposed to defuse a bomb?" What happened in the next 45 seconds would become legendary in EOD circles and prove that steady hands aren't what defuse bombs. Steady nerves are. The warehouse district on the edge of downtown was cordoned off for 3 blocks in every direction. Police had evacuated over 2,000 people from surrounding buildings. SWAT teams held perimeter positions. News helicopters circled at a distance, their cameras capturing the tense scene below. Inside an abandoned shipping warehouse sat a device that had every bomb technician on site terrified. It wasn't the size, relatively small actually. It was the complexity. Whoever built this bomb knew exactly what they were doing. Multiple redundant triggers, anti-tamper switches, a timer that seemed to be accelerating randomly, and enough explosive to level the entire city block. But what was truly shocking was who had just arrived to help. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, 34, was the youngest bomb squad commander in the city's history. He'd trained at the Navy's EOD school, completed multiple tours defusing IEDs in Afghanistan, and had a perfect record: 127 successful disposals, 0 incidents. He was confident, skilled, and under immense pressure as the device's timer showed 28 minutes remaining. His team had been working the bomb for 2 hours. They'd identified the main charge, mapped out the trigger mechanisms, and attempted 3 different approaches to safe the device. Each attempt had been met with a response from the bomb: a new timer activation, a servo motor engaging, a subtle click that suggested any wrong move would detonate it instantly. Webb was running out of options when the old man had shown up. His name was Robert Bobby Castellano, age 82. He walked with a slight limp, had a cloud of white hair, and hands that trembled with essential tremor, a condition that had gotten progressively worse over the past decade. He wore civilian clothes and carried a small, battered toolbox that looked like it was from the 1970s. "Lieutenant Webb?" Bobby said, his voice gravelly with age. "I'm Bobby Castellano. Chief Harrington sent me down." Webb barely glanced at him. "Sir, this is an active bomb disposal scene. Civilians need to stay behind the outer cordon. That's 3 blocks that way." "I know what it is, son. I used to run the city's bomb squad, from 1968 to 1993. Chief said you might need some help. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because what Bobby was about to reveal would shock everyone on that bomb squad." Webb looked up from his tablet, irritation clear on his face. "You ran the bomb squad?" "Sir, no disrespect, but we're dealing with a sophisticated IED here. This isn't some pipe bomb from the 70s. We've got digital timers, solid-state electronics, integrated circuits. And you've been trying to defuse it for 2 hours with no success." Bobby interrupted quietly. "I've been watching on the live feed from the command center. You've tried the standard approaches. They're not working." Webb's jaw tightened. "Because whoever built this knows those approaches. They've designed countermeasures for everything in our playbook." "Then maybe you need someone who doesn't use that playbook," Bobby said simply. Sergeant Rodriguez, Webb's second-in-command, noticed Bobby's hands. "Sir, are your hands shaking?" Bobby held them up. They were indeed trembling, a constant fine tremor. Essential tremor. Had it for 12 years. Gets worse when I'm tired or stressed. Webb stared at him in disbelief. And you want to work on a bomb? A bomb with anti-tamper switches that will detonate if touched wrong? With those hands? If you'll let me look at it, yes. Absolutely not, Webb said flatly. Sir, I appreciate that you have experience, but this is 2024, not 1980. We use robots, remote cameras, precision tools, and even if I was willing to risk a civilian, which I'm not, those shaky hands will kill us all. One wrong twitch near the wrong wire, and this whole block goes up. But this was exactly when the bomb's timer did something that made everyone's blood run cold. The digital display, which had been counting down steadily, suddenly jumped. Instead of 22 minutes remaining, it now showed 8 minutes. What the hell? Webb stared at his monitor. It just accelerated. The countdown just jumped ahead. Rodriguez was already on the radio. Command, be advised the device timer has accelerated. We now have 8 minutes. Repeat, 8 minutes. Webb's mind raced. 8 minutes wasn't enough time to evacuate his team, call in a robot, and attempt another approach. They'd been working off-site with remote, cameras, and tools, but everything was taking too long. Bobby stepped closer. That's a psychological trigger. The bomb maker wants you panicking now, wants you making mistakes. We don't have time for theories, Webb snapped. We need to... He stopped. They needed to do something. But what? Every approach had failed. The device was too sophisticated, too well designed. Lieutenant, Bobby said quietly, I've seen this before. Not this exact bomb, but this psychology. Hanoi, 1972. The NVA had a bomb maker who did the same thing. Complex devices, multiple triggers, timers that played with your head. Webb looked at the old man with the shaking hands. And I defused 7 of his bombs. Lost count of how many lives that saved. The truth was, Bobby hadn't told them the most important thing about his 40 years of experience. Webb looked at his team. At the timer now showing 7 minutes, 12 seconds. At the monitor displaying the complex device with its nest of wires and circuits. Then back at the old man with trembling hands. Every instinct told him this was insane. Protocol said civilians don't approach live ordnance. Common sense said shaky hands and bombs don't mix. But something in Bobby's calm demeanor, in his steady eyes despite his unsteady hands, made Webb hesitate. Talk me through what you see, Webb said finally. On the monitor. Bobby studied the video feed. You see a complex device. I see a simple one dressed up to look complex. What do you mean? All these wires, these circuits, these switches, most of them are theater. They're meant to overwhelm you, make you think you're dealing with something more sophisticated than it is. But look here. He pointed to a junction on the screen. That cluster of wires? Only 2 of them actually go anywhere. The rest are decoys. Rodriguez leaned in. How can you tell? Because I can see the solder points. The real connections have clean, professional solder. The decoy wires have cold solder joints. They're just stuck on for show. Webb checked. Bobby was right. Okay, so if most of it is fake, where's the real trigger? Bobby pointed to a small, almost unnoticeable component partially hidden behind the main circuit board. There. That's your primary. Everything else is misdirection. 6 minutes, 40 seconds. What you're seeing now is nothing. Because what Bobby was about to propose would either save everyone or kill them all. Lieutenant, Bobby said, you're out of time for robots and remote tools. You need someone to go in there and physically access that trigger. And you need someone who won't be intimidated by all the misdirection. You, Webb said. It wasn't a question. Me. With hands that shake like that? Bobby held up his trembling hands. These hands diffused 387 bombs over 25 years. They shook through probably 200 of them. You know what I learned? Steady hands don't defuse bombs. Steady minds do. Rodriguez objected. Sir, with all respect, if you slip, if your hands shake at the wrong moment, then I'll be the only one who dies, Bobby said simply. You have your team evacuated to minimum safe distance. I'll take the walk alone. Webb's mind was racing. This violated every protocol. If Bobby died, it would be Webb's call that killed him. But if he did nothing, and the timer ran out, thousands could die. 5 minutes, 18 seconds. Sergeant, get the team back to the outer perimeter, Webb ordered. Sir, that's an order. Everyone back. Now. As the team began moving, Webb turned to Bobby. You're sure about this? Son, I've been sure about very few things in my life. This is one of them. Why? Bobby smiled faintly. Because I've seen what happens when these things go off in populated areas, and because I'm 82 years old, I've had a good run. Your team? They're young. Let me do this. Actually, Webb hadn't learned the most important lesson yet, because what Bobby was about to demonstrate would redefine everything he knew about bomb disposal. Bobby walked slowly toward the warehouse entrance, his old toolbox in one hand, his cane in the other. The bomb squad team had retreated to the outer cordon, watching through remote cameras. Webb stayed at the command vehicle, closer than he should be, unable to leave completely. 4 minutes, 31 seconds. Through the camera feed, they watched Bobby enter the warehouse. He moved carefully, but without hesitation. When he reached the device, he set down his cane and opened his toolbox. Jesus, Rodriguez whispered, watching Bobby's hands shake as he removed tools. He can barely hold them. But then something remarkable happened. Bobby picked up a small screwdriver, and his hands steadied. Not completely, but noticeably. He positioned himself next to the device, took 3 slow breaths, and began working. How is he? Webb stared at the monitor. His hands aren't shaking as much. An older officer standing nearby, Captain Morrison, spoke up. Intention tremor versus resting tremor. Essential tremor often improves with purposeful movement. The hands shake at rest, but steady when performing a specific task. On screen, Bobby was working with surprising precision. His hands still trembled slightly, but his movements were controlled, deliberate. He ignored the nest of decoy wires and reached directly for the component he'd identified earlier. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. He's going right for it, Webb said. No hesitation. Bobby's voice came through the radio he'd been given. Lieutenant, the timer acceleration is triggered by disturbance sensors. The more you mess with the decoy wires, the faster it counts. Your team kept touching the wrong things. How do you know? Because that's what I would do if I wanted to make someone panic. Make them think they're making progress while actually making things worse. Bobby worked with tools that looked ancient compared to the modern equipment the bomb squad used. But he used them with the confidence of decades of experience. 2 minutes, 53 seconds. But the most critical moment was about to happen. Bobby's hands, which had been relatively steady, suddenly started shaking more violently. The stress was catching up with him, or perhaps just fatigue. Through the camera, they could see him pause, his screwdriver hovering near a crucial connection. No, 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 Rodriguez whispered. He's losing it. Webb grabbed the radio. Bobby, talk to me. You okay? No response. Bobby remained perfectly still, his shaking hands frozen in position. 2 minutes, 11 seconds. We need to pull him out, Rodriguez urged. There's no time, Webb said, his voice tight with tension. Then Bobby spoke, his voice calm. "Just riding it out, son. Sometimes the tremor gets worse. You wait for it to pass." He was completely motionless except for his hands. 30 seconds passed. The shaking gradually lessened. "Okay," Bobby said quietly. "Here we go." His hands moved with sudden, precise confidence. He disconnected a wire, then another. His fingers moved to a small switch hidden behind the circuit board. 1 minute, 44 seconds. "That's the real timer interrupt," Bobby narrated. "Everything else is fake. This little switch here, this is what actually controls the countdown." He pressed it. The timer stopped. 1 minute, 38 seconds. It stayed there, frozen. "Primary timer disabled," Bobby said. "Now for the secondary." "Secondary?" Webb asked. "Always assume there's a backup. Good bomb makers don't trust single points of failure." Bobby worked for another 30 seconds, his shaking hands moving with practiced efficiency around components that would have taken Webb's team hours to identify. Finally, he straightened up. "Clear. Device is safed." The relief on the command vehicle was palpable. Rodriguez actually sat down hard on the ground. Webb keyed his radio with shaking hands. His hands, not Bobby's. "Command, device is clear. Beginning render safe procedures." But they hadn't learned the most important lesson yet. 45 minutes later, after the device had been fully rendered safe and removed, Bobby sat on the back of an ambulance, drinking water while a paramedic checked his vitals. Webb approached, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "Mr. Castellano, I owe you an apology, and probably my life." Bobby smiled. "You don't owe me anything, son. You were following protocol. Protocol exists for good reasons. But I almost let protocol kill people. I saw your shaking hands and assumed you couldn't do the job." "Most people make that assumption," Bobby said without resentment. "I made peace with it years ago." Webb sat down next to him. "How did you stay so calm?" "You were working on a live bomb with a timer counting down, your hands shaking, knowing one mistake would kill you." Bobby was quiet for a moment. "Want to know a secret? The bomb isn't the scary part. I've been dealing with bombs for over 50 years. I understand them. The scary part is always the people, the bomb maker who wants to cause harm, the victims who might die, the young officers who have to make impossible decisions." He looked at Webb. "You were more scared than I was in there, and that's okay. Fear keeps you sharp, but don't let it cloud your judgment." "What do you mean?" "You saw my shaking hands and decided I was incompetent. You didn't ask about my experience, didn't wonder how someone with trembling hands could have survived 40 years in this job. You let one physical characteristic define me." Webb nodded slowly. "You're right. I did." The truth was, Bobby had one more lesson to teach. Captain Morrison walked over, holding a tablet. "Mr. Castellano, I pulled your service record. I thought Lieutenant Webb should see it." He handed the tablet to Webb. As Webb read, his eyes widened. 387 successful disposals, 0 casualties. You trained at the Navy's EOD school in 1966. Served 2 tours in Vietnam as a bomb disposal specialist. After military service, you ran this city's bomb squad for 25 years. You've written 3 textbooks on bomb disposal that are still used in training. You consulted on the Oklahoma City bombing investigation. You helped develop the current protocols we use for IED disposal." Bobby shrugged. "It's been a long career." "And you developed essential tremor in 2012, Webb continued reading, but continued consulting and training until 2020. Your last recorded disposal was 3 years ago, age 79. Got called out for an old Vietnam-era device they found at a construction site. Figured I might as well help, since I remembered the type. Webb looked at the old man with new eyes. Everything I know about bomb disposal, you either invented or improved, and I treated you like you were incompetent because your hands shake. You're young, Bobby said kindly. You'll learn. The best EOD techs I ever knew weren't the ones with steady hands or perfect vision or quick reflexes. They were the ones who could stay calm, think clearly, and see past the misdirection. Those are mental skills, not physical ones. Rodriguez joined them. Sir, the device has been fully examined. You were right about everything. The decoy wires, the fake circuits, the hidden timer interrupt. The bomb squad manual would have had us spending hours on components that didn't matter. That's because the manual is written for average devices, Bobby said. Good bomb makers don't build average devices. They build traps that exploit your training. So how do you beat them? Webb asked. By being older and more devious than they are, Bobby smiled. And by shaking hands with death enough times that you stop being afraid of it. The story of Bobby Castellano and his shaky hands spread through EOD communities worldwide. The body camera footage of him calmly defusing the device while his hands trembled became required viewing at bomb disposal schools. But more importantly, it sparked a conversation about disability and capability. About how physical limitations don't define competence, about how experience and knowledge can compensate for failing bodies. Lieutenant Webb requested Bobby as a consultant for his bomb squad. For the next 2 years, until Bobby finally retired at 84, he reviewed every significant device the squad encountered. He trained the new recruits. He taught them that bomb disposal was 10% physical skill and 90% mental discipline. Your hands will eventually shake, Bobby would tell them. Your eyes will fail. Your reflexes will slow. But your mind, your experience, your ability to read a device and understand the bomber's psychology, those only get better with age. When Bobby Castellano passed away at 86, his funeral was attended by over 500 bomb disposal technicians from around the world. They came from military EOD units, police bomb squads, and private sector disposal companies. Every one of them had been touched by his teaching, his example, or his legend. Lieutenant Webb, now a captain, gave the eulogy. Bobby Castellano taught me the most important lesson I ever learned in this job. I was watching his hands shake and worrying about his fine motor control. He was watching the bomb and understanding its psychology. I was focused on physical limitations. He was focused on mental capabilities. And in 45 seconds with shaking hands, he did what my entire team with steady hands couldn't do in 2 hours. He saved lives not because his hands were steady, but because his mind was. At the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, they added a special plaque honoring Bobby's service. It reads, Robert Bobby Castellano, 1942 to 2028. His hands shook. His courage never did. And in EOD schools around the world, they teach the Castellano principle. Never judge a technician's capability by physical appearance. Judge them by their knowledge, their calm, and their understanding that bombs are diffused by minds, not hands. The device that day in the warehouse had been built by a sophisticated bomb maker who understood modern EOD protocols and had designed specifically to defeat them. But he hadn't counted on an 82-year-old with shaking hands who'd been doing this since before protocols existed, who understood that the best way to beat a complex device was to ignore the complexity and find the simplicity hidden beneath. Lieutenant Webb kept a photo on his desk for the rest of his career. It showed Bobby's trembling hands holding a screwdriver next to a defused bomb, frozen at 1 minute, 38 seconds. The caption, written by Webb himself, read, "Steady hands save the day. But shaky hands, guided by a steady mind, become legendary."